Hey everybody, it's Mark Pattison. I'm back with another great episode of Finding Your Summit, all about people overcoming adversity and finding their way. And before we get to today's wonderful guest, I just want to make sure everybody is aware of my website, www.markpattisonnfl. I've got 240 other podcasts on there. I've been doing this now 2-3 years. And we have a sponsor coming around the corner. I can't announce it quite yet, but it is around the bend. But there are amazing people doing incredible things. So if you want to be inspired, tap in. We're on all available podcast channels. That's number one. Number two is if you want to go check out the NFL film, Searching for the Summit on my Everest ascent last year in my journey I've been on. You can watch that via NFL 360. It's a really cool film. And lastly, I'd appreciate any kind of love on the website if you hit the YouTube icon, because I'm trying to build up that channel as well. All funds that I ultimately make from that YouTube channel, I will be distributing over to Higher Ground, the philanthropy that I support here in Sun Valley. They're also located in New York and Los Angeles. So on that note, let's get into today's rock star guest. Her name is Crystal Igor. How are you doing, Crystal?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Mark. Grateful to be here.
Yeah, so I think you and I met originally. I mean, we've never actually met, but sort of met through LinkedIn. And it was fascinating because I've had a lot of people on the podcast in the sports, in the film, in the mountain climbing. I mean, it seems like I've had most segments of what you could fulfill society with, but I've never had somebody who's in the weather business, right? A meteorologist. And so here you are, you've got this pretty cool background. You've been with some fairly big outlets, the Weather Channel, KNBC in LA. And I wanted to kind of get into, you're a Southern California girl, right? Pretty much every day is 72 and sunny and palm trees out there. And you go to the University of Santa Barbara. And then, I was just trying to find the connection for you on now you're going off to Mississippi State to get your MBA to really study weather. I know there's some crazy weather that can happen down there because I lived in New Orleans for a couple of years, but where did this whole bug of wanting to be one of those people on screen talking about crazy storm patterns and daily weather?
Well, I'll explain. I mean, it definitely did not come from growing up in Southern California. I can't recall any, significant weather events that really sparked my interest. There's certainly a lot of people in the industry that grew up and remember one vivid moment of a powerful thunderstorm or tornado that forever changed their perspective and they really wanted to become meteorologists. But for me, it's interesting. I went to Santa Barbara to study communication and Spanish. I really wanted to get into communication or marketing, something along those lines. And at Santa Barbara, we did not have a specific meteorology program. So I wasn't even thinking about that at the time. I came back to San Diego after graduating. I worked at the San Diego World Trade Center. I was putting on events with, international visitors, talking about business and trade. And I just didn't enjoy it anymore. I wanted something new and more challenging. My good friend Sarah had invited me to San Diego City College to a radio and TV program. And I thought, okay, I'll check it out and see what that's about. It was a nighttime class that I was going to with her, and we were able to produce, write stories, create packages. We had our own newscast called News Scene that we put on cable. And I remember my professor, Laura Castaneda, who I'm still very close with, she just really encouraged me along the way. And a few times I got to do the weather, and I would do the weather for the newscast. And I felt really comfortable in that space, I guess, because it was ad-libbing and I was terrible at reading the teleprompter. And I just didn't feel that was my niche. And she pulled me aside once and said, I really think you should consider weather. And I said, okay, but if I'm going to do that, I need to know what I'm talking about. And, I've always loved math and science. That was really my strong point in school. So I said, I'm going to sign up for this Mississippi State program. And it's actually a broadcast meteorology 3-year certification. I said, if I like it, I'll stick with it. And I took the first semester, Meteorology 101. I absolutely loved it. I feel like not only does it bring math and science together, but every day you're looking at all these elements of a puzzle and trying to put them together to create a forecast. And I like the challenge of that. But I also love that weather is universal. And I started to realize as I was thinking more and more about a career in meteorology that, I go to the dentist and they're talking to me about the weather. I'm talking to my grandparents about the weather. It's just such a big part of small talk, and it's universal. It can apply to anyone. And so I thought, that's where I'm going to go.
Well, I certainly could have used your weather forecast last year when I was on Mount Everest, stuck in a cyclone at 22,500 feet for 3 days in a sleeping bag. So I don't know if they did the proper forecasting on that, but I mean, weather is everything, and it can dictate events. And certainly in the last couple of days, we're broadcasting this now on April 1st. And I think it was yesterday, the day before, down in the south, they had these, like 32 tornadoes that ripped through. But when you're talking about science and math, how do those equations come together to create a forecast? I'm trying to understand that.
Well, a lot of studying meteorology involves, numbers and statistics and understanding weather models and the output from those weather models. A lot of thermodynamics involved. That's where the science aspect comes in. I mean, for me, I had to learn so much on the job. I was able to get a broadcast job in Idaho, and I really just needed to be there as I was going through Mississippi State as a distance learning program. So I was able to start working and just better understand the weather patterns that were happening and how the seasons changed and what was normal and what was average, and learning to communicate on the air. That's the most important aspect, of course, so that the audience understands what to expect. And yeah, I just loved the challenge of doing that and growing my career there from a weekend forecaster to eventually working the morning show and then the evening show before I took off to Denver, Colorado, where I had even more on the job experience.
Yeah, so it sounds like in Denver it was the first time that you actually covered a tornado. And what is that like? I can't. I mean, when I lived down in New Orleans, we experienced a couple of these wind, I don't even know what you call them, funnels or whatever, that you go through that we had to be aware of. But I mean, to see something that massive and that powerful, and you see these shows with these storm chasers that are going after these giganto tornadoes that just rip through communities and the destruction. I can't imagine the kind of force. And then people become so reliant about the path. Where is it going, and where do they obviously have to stay out of? I mean, what was that like covering something horrific as that devastating tornado?
You've done your research. And that was the Greeley, Colorado tornado that I've probably talked about as one of my most memorable experiences as a meteorologist. So living in California, a lot of meteorologists here, or a lot of weather people, I should say, don't necessarily go to school for meteorology, but my news director in Denver made it very clear that we have severe weather here. We are in the business of warning people and saving lives and communicating the threat. So it's very important that you know what you're talking about. We also had to get our NWA and AMS certifications just to be able to get on the air. So my first year there, I was not done with all of my studies. And so my news director had me in the field. I was assisting the meteorologist in studio. And I would cover, every kind of weather event you can imagine year round, a lot of snowstorms and ski resorts. But this particular day in the spring, you could feel the volatility in the air. I was in Boulder covering a different story that morning and talking about the weather. And I went back to the station, and there was just so much buzz around the weather center. Something big was happening, and there was nobody else to get on the air except for me. And we were using something called Viper radar, which was such a powerful tool to get high resolution data of that tornado and to track it as it was heading through Greeley. And I remember the assignment desk saying, there's a daycare center in the path of the storm. And at the time, my aunt lived in that area too. So there was just so much personal connection to what was happening that I really had to separate that and stay focused on the air and try and communicate the threat. But at the same time, I'm thinking, I need to call my aunt. I hope these children are okay, That was a scary day. And then of course, the next day we were there at sunrise to look at all the damage. And that's when I knew that this is serious business. Mm-hmm. And I'm here to provide a powerful message and support people's safety.
Yeah, I believe you did have a stop too for a number of years at the Weather Channel, and one thing that I work in digital media and with Sports Illustrated, and kind of the umbrella company is called the Arena Group. The Arena Group were ranked number 34, the largest websites in the U.S. And I was blown away to see, because I see who's number 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, but not too far down the list is the Weather Channel. Right. And it just blew me away, the power of the amount of eyeballs that are landing on that channel to watch. And I know they've got some exciting shows too, not just about what the forecast is, but also, again, going back to the storm changers, the hurricanes, things like that, those powerful events that affect so many different people. What was that like working at, like a big, so you've gone from this kind of small market in Idaho Falls, and now you've gone all the way from there, made a pass through Denver, and now you're at the Weather Channel.
Yeah, the Weather Channel is really considered the mecca for meteorologists. When I was in Idaho Falls, I would watch Stephanie Abrams, Jen Carfagno, Jim Cantore, and they were celebrities to me. I really idolized them. I tried to pick up on their lingo and how they were communicating the weather. And I just had it in my long-term goal plan that I'm going to make it to the Weather Channel someday. I really want to work alongside the best of the best, and to be able to go to national television. I nearly had a panic attack my first day on the air. I'll never forget that. I was just terrified at the thought of how many people were watching, first of all. But over time, you get used to it. You get comfortable. I remember I couldn't catch my breath in Idaho Falls my first week on the air. So all a growing process, and getting the repetition under your belt and understanding, where to stand and how things work when you're covering national weather. It's not your local market anymore. So it presented a lot of challenges. But that first year we had the Tuscaloosa, Birmingham tornado outbreak. I was live on the air during that time. Superstorm Sandy happened when I was there, the Japan quake and tsunami. I have so many big, Joplin, Missouri, just big weather events that I was there for on the air. And I remember the producers would throw the mayor or the governor on the air with you, and you literally have a minute to think about what you're going to ask. So you're not in front of a green screen giving a forecast. We're considered on camera meteorologists. They call us OCMs. So you really have to do everything, anchoring and weather forecasting. So I learned a ton when I was there, just about how to think on the spot and ask the right questions, working with Dr. Greg Forbes, Dr. McNabb, all the hurricane specialists. I mean, you could not ask for better experience. We would get briefed before every show by the Global Forecast Center team. And a lot of those guys had been there for decades. And it was just incredible. I think that was absolutely my favorite experience in my career.
Yeah. So you talked about when you're back in Idaho Falls and you had, I don't know, 3 or 4 names that you just plucked out. And to you, they were celebrities. For me, when I got into the NFL and I was drafted by the Raiders, there's all these celebrity names. There's 2 guys that won the Heisman Trophy, Marcus Allen, Jim Plunkett, and we had a load of other stars. And I'd seen these guys in the Super Bowl, and all of a sudden now I'm their friends. I'm hanging out. I'm in the huddle with them. And so for you, was that kind of on one hand, it's kind of a star effect that now you're one of their colleagues. But at the same time, is kind of starstruck. You were like, you know what? I deserve to be here.
It took me a while to feel that I deserved to be there, because I really wanted to be just as good as everybody I was working alongside. But yeah, I mean, I was completely starstruck. And then before I knew it, we're going out for beers together. We're having, birthday parties on Saturdays, and they just become this close-knit family of people that already seem larger than life to you. So then you kind of feel larger than life. Like it's an experience I can't really describe. I mean, stepping out of broadcasting has been really hard, because it's almost like this high that you get associating yourself with those people. And I'm sure you can relate with being on the NFL and having the audience that you have and everything that comes with it.
Well, so I want to ask you about, and this is going to like morph into a couple other questions I have about other things that you're doing today. But I have two daughters. Okay. And so I am like Mr. Dad advocate for women and for my daughters, and helping them in any way I possibly can in terms of, empowering girl empowerment, really. And so for you, did you find any challenge in terms of being a weather person, stepping into this world and making your way up? Or from as I step back, it just seems like a lot of those positions are already filled by women. So it wasn't that much of a jump for you to go from point A to point B.
Right. I feel like a lot of women paved the way for me. I'm really good friends with Kathy Sabin, who works in Colorado. She was one of the first female chief meteorologists in that state. Took over for, men that had come before her, and has been there for 25 years. And she was a shining example to me. And then at the Weather Channel, we had, Heather Tesh, Samantha Moore, Vivian Brown, so many great women. And I kind of felt like I had an advantage because I was a woman. They were hiring more women. And I think we do a good job at communicating the threats. So I didn't see a lot of challenges. I even had a lot of women in management that I looked up to. And my agent for all those years was also a woman, and they all just supported me, and we rallied together.
That's great. That's great. So I want to stay on the weather bit. So, like all parts of life, you transition, and we all transition, and there's places that you want to live or priorities that you have, might be your family. But some years ago, I don't know exactly how many years ago, you started something called Monarch Weather, right? And as I was looking at this, I read it, I digested it, and I didn't understand it. And it was a certified consulting meteorologist helping organizations mitigate risk and reward. So what does that mean? Give us an example of what that exactly means and what you guys do.
Sure. So the way this all came about was by me being hired as a weather and climate advisor outside of broadcasting. So after the Weather Channel, I came to NBC Los Angeles, completely motivated by family. I had two daughters at the time. I'm extremely close to my mom, who lives here in San Diego. And I just didn't want to do life on the other side of the country in Atlanta, Georgia anymore. Mm-hmm. So I took the job at NBC Los Angeles, worked on the morning show there for about 4 years. And I don't know if you know that in broadcasting, you either work very early in the morning in the news world, or very late in the evening. There's not a great middle ground. Those are the big shows. So I was on the morning show, waking up at 1:45 in the morning or 2 a.m. for almost 4 years. Most of my career, I had really challenging hours for about 15 years. But having little kids and waking up at 2 and just giving your all to the show, which takes a lot of mental energy. Yeah. You could be having the crappiest day, but you can't really show it. So just fighting through all of that and doing your 150% for 8 hours, and then coming home to your husband and kids just wiped out. It just took its toll on me. I didn't want that lifestyle. My family and my health are always number one, and it didn't feel healthy. It didn't feel right. So I made the really, really difficult decision to get out of the business completely. I always felt like I could hopefully go back if I changed my mind, but something's telling me there's a better life out there for me. I have to give this a try. And I wanted to move down to San Diego, and I didn't feel like working in this market. I thought, I've done everything I set my mind to do. I'd reached my summit in broadcast meteorology. So let's just see what else I can do. And I came down to San Diego, and I was hired. I had never thought of consulting at the time. I didn't know where I was headed, but I was hired by a large international technology company to work as a weather and climate advisor. And I really enjoy the flexibility of doing it from home, where I am right now on my laptop, working around my kids, waking up at normal hours. And from there, I brought on my partner, Catherine Prosiv. We met at the Weather Channel. She's a brilliant behind the scenes meteorologist. I said, I need a little bit of support. Would you be interested? And she said, absolutely. And she's now at NBC News working alongside Al Roker and doing Monarch with me. They've approved her to do that, which is great. So we started Monarch Weather together 3 years ago now, and we continue to grow and work. We work with a team of meteorologists and data scientists. So what we do is we take weather and climate data and turn it into impact for our clients, depending on which industry. We serve various industries such as agriculture, insurance. Let me give you an example. We created a product for farmers called Ag 360. And it's basically an app that gives you all of your weather and climate information in a one-stop shop. Growing degree day analysis, NDVI satellite data, whatever you need when you're out on the tractor, so you don't have to search around. It's related specifically to your farm and to the crops that you're growing. We also have insurance, where we provide, climate risk data. We do forensic meteorology, looking back on an event that maybe is going to trial. You can investigate the weather and provide reports and testify in court on behalf of the client. We are working with a private satellite company to provide global flood forecasting. Our whole team is, they work in Python and programming to create APIs. So we also have an API that feeds into a new app called Daily Breath. I mean, the possibilities are endless. A lot of people are reaching out to us for climate data, understanding what they're up against in the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, a lot of people don't think about it in that way, but the weather has, again, so much to do with, if you're growing grapes for a vineyard, when to grow them and what the weather is going to be like, what the soil is going to be like. And there's all an impact based on all those different, and especially with global warming that's going on, I can only imagine, the effects of that's happening. Okay. So that is kind of your whole broadcasting life. Another thing that I don't know if this is like a pet project for you, but a sunny space, right? And so it looks like it's a documentary and lifestyle platform. You're creating short films. And what was the whole idea behind that? What was the energy?
Again, when I was working in Los Angeles, I really opened my eyes, not only to the fact that weather was getting too monotonous for me to do in Los Angeles. There's only
hey, today it's 72 and sunny, right?
Yeah. And when you're on a morning show, the shows are long and you have cut-ins, and you may end up doing 30, 35 weather hits, just trying to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Ways. You can imagine Weather Channel was so much more challenging and diversified. So I didn't feel like I was growing anymore. I wanted to move on and try something different. So part of that was also being part of the LA morning show vibe and just the content that was out there. I mean, the housewives and Kardashians and everything that's being covered. I was frustrated by it. Some of our top lead-in stories would be about something so frivolous. I just couldn't believe that we were focusing our time on that.
Yeah.
I thought, I want to create content with impact. I'm a mother of 2 daughters, and they're going to grow up thinking that these are the influencers and the role models in their life. So how can I create something with substance and meaning? And when I came here to San Diego, not only was I working as the weather and climate advisor, but I met somebody who works in brand development, and I funded the Sunny Space concept to get some of these stories off the ground. And then I pitched them to a women's denim brand and was able to do a 2-year campaign profiling these incredible, diverse women that are really trailblazers and doing something positive in the world to influence young girls.
That's awesome. I've seen some of them. They're relatively short, which is good, especially the way we digest content. I don't know, 5 to 7 minutes or something, but they are focused on women. Again, I'm all about women empowerment, and there's about people doing good stuff out on the planet, and you're trying to capture that. And it does make sense. And I just roll my eyes so often when I look at the news, and like, who cares about the Kardashians, right? I mean, they've never done anything, right? And so people that are doers, and you're on the other side of that now. You're not focused on yourself being the shining star, but focusing that light on others, but using kind of the tools that you've learned to really bring, I think, a brighter light and those stories to more people that actually have some depth to them. And that's what it's all about.
Definitely. You said that perfectly. And I want people to feel something, when they listen to a story. I don't know if you saw my own story about my daughter being born 3 months early. She weighed 1 pound, 14 ounces.
Wow.
It was such an emotional, dark time for me.
No.
I was always searching for stories that would give me hope, similar stories. And I think that drives a lot of the Sunny Space content for me, is just wanting to help people because there were a lot of stories that helped me when I needed to see the light.
Yeah, well, again, let's go back to this podcast, right? I started this, 10 years ago. I was going through a rough patch in my life, and I started this podcast 3 years ago or so, and it's Finding Your Summit, all about people overcoming adversity and finding their way. And we all need to be inspired at the end of the day. And for me, that is really no exception. Like you, I've been able to do some cool stuff, but I still need to be inspired on a daily basis, being motivated to go up there and continue to train and do these other things that I do, and work towards and for some of these different philanthropy organizations that, that I send money. I mean, it takes effort, and we don't always all get out of bed raring and charging and like feel like you're the king or the queen on top of the mountain. And so it just takes different bits of inspiration and motivation that others can provide based on what they've been through, to say, you know what, I got through this and you can too. And that's hopefully what these podcasts are all about just sharing these people's stories like yourself, that you're going to give somebody out there, even if it's one person, just a little lift in that particular day. Like, she did it, I think I can do it. And you've just inspired me to go do something greater.
Absolutely. Yeah, I spent so many years doing live television. I wanted to do something that was edited, creative content that spoke from the heart. And so it has been more of a passion project. In fact, I just went to Texas last week, and under the Sunny Space umbrella, we're filming a show concept, a show pitch, and a sizzle to go with that. And it's all about, we're working with this company who's doing sustainable landscaping. And it's, from backyards and balconies to playgrounds and large commercial space, like, whatever we can do to educate and help create a greener planet, that's what we want to do. And, I'm able to contribute the weather and climate angle to that. So I just love new projects and ideas. I don't like being stuck. I think a lot of people joked, like, I would just get one market and then I would move on. I think because I was always wondering, okay, what's next? I don't like comfortable, I guess. That's how that's how I keep finding my summit, is by diversifying my skills, because never in a million years did I think I was going to be running a business. And, now I'm considering getting my MBA because it may work in my advantage. I've just learned so much about business. If I had just stayed in broadcasting, I wouldn't have that whole side of me,
I do know, and I think change can scare a lot of people, but change can be good. And one thing about change is, at times, not always, but you can change it back. And so that enters into the fear mode of, I don't want to do this because I'm scared of this or that. And it's something that's been really become prominent in my life, about taking risk and jumping out there, and the amazing gifts that have come back. And most all of them have not been financial. They've just been rewarded in other different ways. But where can people find you? Because you've got a lot of really cool stuff going on. And I want to make sure that, especially with A Sunny Space, they can see these docs that you're putting out there.
Great. Well, all of the documentaries we've created are on asunnyspace.com, asunnyspace.com. I loved the name. It reminded me of creating our own sunny space in our lives,
Yeah.
and in all aspects, and how we live. And then monarchweather.com is the weather and climate consulting business we're doing.
That's great. That's great. Well, listen, continued success to you. And I appreciate you so much for coming on. We had a little battle trying to get you live, but here we are. It's in the bag. And again, nothing but continued success for you and these ongoing projects. And I can't wait to see more great content coming out of asunnyspace.com.
Thank you so much, Mark. And likewise, I wish you continued success, and I'll be following along.
All right. There she is, the one, the only Crystal Egger. Thank you so much. Bye.